Story by kindnesstories USA. I'm not beautiful like you expected, she sadly said. He whispered, "You're perfect." The rain fell in relentless sheets over the city, blurring the neon lights into soft, wavering streaks. The small cafe on the corner of Willow Street offered refuge from the storm, its warm glow spilling onto the wet pavement. Inside, soft jazz floated through the air, mingling with the occasional clink of cups and murmured conversation. At a corner table, a man sat alone, staring at the swirling patterns in his coffee. Ethan Miles, 34, an architect whose buildings grace the Chicago skyline, had eyes that carried a quiet sadness. He hadn't believed in love for a long time, not after what he had lost. But tonight, his heart betrayed his resolve. He was waiting for a woman he had never met in person, a woman he had known only through typed words on lonely nights. Her name was Clara Hayes. They had met online through a charity project. Ethan had volunteered to design eco-friendly shelters for underprivileged communities, while Clara had offered to run art programs for the children. Their conversations began with polite exchanges about plans and schedules, but soon grew into long messages about life, loss, and the little things that made their nights feel warmer. Clara's words were honest and kind. They carried a fragile beauty, the kind that comes from surviving something dark. Ethan didn't need to know the details to feel the weight she carried. Somehow, he already understood. Tonight, they were finally meeting. Ethan checked his watch. 7:40 p.m., 20 minutes late. The waitress refilled his coffee, offering him a sympathetic smile. He nodded, forcing a smile of his own. Every tick of the clock pulled at a thread of anxiety in his chest. Perhaps she had changed her mind. Perhaps she had looked in the mirror, doubted herself, and walked away. The cafe door opened, and the bell above it jingled softly. A gust of cold wind swept through the room, carrying the scent of wet streets and rain-soaked coats. Ethan's gaze lifted. A woman stood there, holding a small umbrella. Her beige coat was damp at the edges, her hair partly tucked under a scarf. She looked around nervously, as if unsure she could step inside. Then her eyes met his. For a moment, the world outside vanished. Her steps were hesitant, almost apologetic, as she approached his table. Her hands trembled as she clutched her purse strap. When she finally reached him, she didn't sit. "Ethan," she whispered, voice soft, almost fragile. "It's me, Clara." He stood, smiling warmly. "You made it." She nodded, then lowered her gaze. I should have told you before." "Tell me what?" Ethan asked gently, leaning slightly forward. She drew a shaky breath. "I'm not beautiful. Not like you might have expected." Before he could respond, she slowly unwrapped the scarf around her neck. A thin scar ran along her jawline, tracing a gentle curve toward her cheek. It wasn't severe, not grotesque, just a mark that carried a story. Clara's eyes fell to the floor, bracing herself for rejection. But Ethan's expression softened. He stepped closer, his voice steady and warm. "You're perfect." Tears welled in Clara's eyes. No one had ever said that to her without pity, without hesitation. She felt seen, not for her scar, but for the woman she had hidden for so long. 3 years earlier, Clara's life had shattered in an instant. A car accident had left her face marked and her spirit broken. Her fiancé at the time had left 2 weeks after she was discharged from the hospital, unable to accept her changed appearance. Since then, mirrors had become enemies, photographed strangers, and self-love a distant memory. She had buried herself in volunteering, in helping children find joy through art, though she rarely found joy for herself. Tonight, she had almost turned away. She had stood outside the cafe for 15 minutes, watching her reflection in the rain, telling herself she wasn't worthy. But something about Ethan, his messages, his quiet humor, his ability to talk about pain without shame, had given her courage to enter the cafe. Now, as they talked, the world narrowed down to the space between them. The cafe emptied. The rain softened outside. And for the first time in years, Clara laughed, a sound that surprised her with its lightness. Ethan listened. When she spoke about giving up painting after the accident, he said gently, "Then it's time to paint again. The world still needs your colors." Clara looked up, her eyes searching his. In them, she saw no pity, only belief. The next few weeks unfolded like a quiet, beautiful dream. They met often, at the cafe, along the lakeshore, and sometimes at the community arts center, where Clara began painting again. Her first works were tentative, like a bird testing its wings. But gradually, color and life returned to her brush. Ethan became her quiet champion, helping her organize a small exhibition. He never pushed, never overshadowed, just showed up steady and patient. Yet beneath her growing confidence, Clara still wrestled with fear. She would sometimes trace her scar in the mirror and whisper, "He deserves someone whole." The shadows of the past, the cruel words of her ex, the judgmental stares, the sense of being unworthy, never fully left. One evening, while Ethan helped her hang a new painting, she asked softly, "Why do you keep showing up for me?" He paused, studying her. "Because someone once showed up for me when I didn't believe I deserved it." Clara frowned gently. "What do you mean?" "When my wife, Emily, was dying of cancer," Ethan said, voice breaking slightly. "I watched her lose her hair, her strength, her smile, and yet she was still the most beautiful person I had ever known. Love isn't about perfection. It's about staying, even when it hurts." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm not her." He shook his head. "No, you're Clara. And meeting you, it reminded me that beauty isn't what the world sees. It's what the heart recognizes. That's why I keep showing up." That night, Clara allowed herself to cry, not out of shame, but relief. Life, as it often does, tested her newfound peace. Clara's artwork began to flourish. She started giving art classes to children at the community center. Her laughter returned, echoing to the halls, her hands once again streaked with paint. But fame can be cruel. A journalist covering the community center wrote a feature on Clara's program. The article went viral, not because of her art, but because of her scar. Online commenters were cruel, mocking her appearance and suggesting Ethan could only be with her out of pity. For 3 days, Clara didn't answer his calls. She stayed in her apartment, curtains drawn, heart heavy. The old insecurities returned with full force. When Ethan finally came to her door, he knocked softly. "Clara, it's me. Please, don't shut yourself away." She didn't answer. He waited, rain soaking his coat. "Don't let them steal what you've built," he said, his voice trembling. The door creaked open an inch. Clara's eyes were red. "They're right, Ethan," she whispered. "You deserve someone normal, someone without scars." He stepped closer, voice firm but gentle. "You think I care about strangers? When I lost Emily, she had nothing, not hair, not strength, not mobility. But she was still the most beautiful person I'd ever known. Beauty fades. Souls don't." Clara felt tears streaming as his words sank in. I don't know if I can." Ethan cupped her face. "Clara, I saw life in you before you even saw it in yourself. That's what perfect looks like." She hugged him tightly, sobbing, "Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself." A year later, Clara's paintings were displayed at a major city exhibition. The collection, titled Perfectly Scarred, showcased faces lined with life, hands marked with experience, and eyes that had seen too much yet still sparkle with hope. When reporters asked about her inspiration, she smiled softly. "A man who taught me that love doesn't erase scars. It makes them part of your story." That night, as they walked under the calm city lights, Clara squeezed Ethan's hand. "Do you still think I'm perfect?" Ethan looked at her the same way he had the first night, more than ever. The rain had stopped. The air was cool. Chicago glimmered around them like a promise. Clara smiled. "I used to hate mirrors. But now when I look in one, I see the woman you believed I could be." Ethan smiled. "Then I guess we both healed." Because love hadn't fixed them, it reminded them they were never truly broken. Kindness Dairies USA message. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Dairies USA. Your support helps us spread stories of hope, compassion, and second chances. Speech Balloon, tell us in the comments below, what does true beauty mean to you? Your words might be the light someone else needs tonight. Sparkle scars don't make you less beautiful. They make your story unforgettable.